Madagascar is a large island lying in the Indian Ocean off the southeast coast of Africa. It is approximately the size of the state of Arkansas.
Hi, I'm Randy Bone. In 1968, the U.S. space program was just maturing into reality. NASA was launching all kinds of satellites into space for scientific research, weather, communications, and the like. And of course, the Apollo moon program was also under development, and testing was starting on that. Now, satellite technology at that time was fairly primitive compared to what we would expect today. Satellites required a lot of monitoring, a lot of support from the ground. Now, of course, the Earth is round, so as a satellite orbits the Earth, part of the time it can't be seen from the United States. It's on the wrong side of the world, wrong side of the planet. So NASA built a network of ground support stations around the world to track and monitor these satellites. Now, in 1968, I was an adventure-loving 23-year-old, not long off the cotton farms in Alabama. So I took a job working on a NASA ground station in Madagascar. And this is the story of what I found when I got to Madagascar. The country's changed, of course, some since then. That was 40 years ago. But most of the changes are going to be in the cities. The countryside is pretty much the way I describe it here. There are some things I've added. The technology I was using at that time, the photographic techniques and equipment, were the best available to me then, but by today's standards, they're primitive. So I don't have any audio from that time. Some of the rituals and religious rites, especially in this story, really need sound. So I have added sound recorded at later times to some of that. So all the sound in this video is later than most of the photographs. I've also added a few photographs and video clips from the internet just to kind of show a little bit of what it's like now and some of the changes. But the vast majority of what's here is my stuff from the late 1960s, early 70s. When it's something newer, I'll try to remember to point it out when I use it. But so for now, let's see what happened in Madagascar.
I lived in Madagascar for 5 years. I met my wife Nachine there. She is from the island of Mauritius, which lies several hundred miles east of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. My oldest daughter, Deborah, was born in Madagascar. After return to the United States, Tina was born in North Carolina. Alicia, the youngest, came along later, also born in North Carolina. Madagascar is a large island with diverse geography, vegetation, and animals, and people. The geographical districts of Madagascar vary in altitude greatly, from sea level all the way up to a height of 2,876 meters or 9,436 feet. Fairly high mountains. Uh, Madagascar separated from Africa millions of years ago. Madagascar's plants and animals developed along their own lines. Many of the species of plants and animals found in Madagascar are found no place else in the world. When Madagascar separated from Africa, there were no humans. So, where did the people come from? You would think Africa. That's the closest continent uh, with a population, and some did. There are many Malagasy living along the coast who are of African descent, and they've been there a long time. But they weren't the first. We know from modern research that the first people of Madagascar came from the Indonesian islands. Yes, yes, the Indonesian island chain, uh, particularly Malaysia. This lies thousands of miles across the Pacific and across India, but somehow they did it. DNA evidence places their lineage on Borneo. That's a long way away. This is the kind of traveling our best evidence today says people were doing at that time. Quite a trip on an outrigger canoe, from, all the way from Indonesia to Madagascar and a lot of other places. They must have been hardy folk. This is an artist's conception of a voyage from Indonesia to Madagascar 2,000 years ago. Outrigger canoes with sails. The east coast of Madagascar is very much a tropical island. It has white sandy beaches, beautiful palm trees, all the kind of things you would expect from a tropical island. People living in this area tend to be of African origin. They make their homes from simple structures and live a simple life on the coast. Palm trees swaying in a gentle breeze along the east coast of Madagascar. But life along this coast depends on fishing and seafood. This canoe is used every day by the people who live here to harvest the bounties of the sea. It's probably not much different than the canoes the original inhabitants traveled all the way across the Pacific, all the way across the Indian Ocean on. Sun rises over the east coast of Madagascar, the start of another day. And fishermen set to the sea as they've done for thousands of years. Fishing along an inland cove or inlet in the mouth of a river joining the sea. I've always been impressed with people who can stand up in a canoe. It takes a lot of skill. The end of a long day of harvesting fish from the sea. The essence of life in this part of Madagascar. A hard-working fisherman hangs his net out to dry in the sun. It's been a good day. And this little girl and her family will eat well tonight. Good catch. An entire family group harvests fish. A mother and her daughter take shellfish. If we leave the east coast of Madagascar, head west and up into the rainforest, there are two ways we can travel. There's a old narrow gauge railroad that travels from the city of Tamatov, the main seaport on the east coast, up through the rainforest and eventually winds up at the capital. When I was there, it was called Tananarive. I think they've changed the name to something like Antananarivo now. But two ways to get there. You could take the old narrow gauge railroad up. There was also a jungle road you could drive through going up there. I've traveled it both ways, both by driving and also on the train. If the jungle road is unpaved, rough, hard to get over, especially in the rainy season. But it was a nice trip. As we head into the rainforest, we start to see a different lifestyle, different terrain, of course. This is more of a dense jungle area. Um, Houses are constructed somewhat differently. The lifestyle is different. Of course, they don't have the fish resources here they had on the coast. And of course, as we see in any area subject to flooding, people often build their houses on stilts. This is constructed using material locally available in the jungle. As I said, as we travel on into the rainforest, we start to see different things. As mentioned earlier, Madagascar has a lot of animals and plants that are unique to the island of Madagascar. They're found no place else in the world. One is the teneric. The teneric is a small, spiny hedgehog sort of animal. And the other, of course, is the world famous lemur. The teneric is unusual or it's unique in that it has the largest litters of any mammal in the world. Sometimes they have 30 to 40 babies at the same time. Maybe that's useful. Here, a famous chef prepares a teneric lunch. And then we encounter the lemur. The lemur is probably the animal most unique to Madagascar, most famously unique to Madagascar. Zoologists call it the world's most primitive primate. The lemur may not look much like a monkey or an ape, but it's definitely a primate. It can climb with the best of them. I followed these through a lot of trees getting these photographs. It's quite an animal. When mom goes for a walk, baby just has to come along. And so we leave the rainforest and the lemurs behind and head on up into the highlands. Madagascar is populated by what anthropologists describe as 19 distinct tribes or groups. As we get into the highlands, we reach the home of the largest tribe, the Mariner. They are the first folk, kind of, if you will. They're the descendants of the people who migrated from Borneo. As you can see, they're much less African in their appearance and are obviously a different ethnic group. Life on the high plateau is quite different from life on the coast or in the rainforest in a number of ways. As I've mentioned, the ethnicity of the people is different. It's also much drier there than in the lower than at lower elevations. Buildings are different. Most buildings on the highland are made of adobe type mud and mud bricks. They also are almost always two-story. This has to do with some local superstitions or religious beliefs about how evil spirits can't climb stairs, so they always like to sleep on the upper floors. Most of the houses will be taller, as we see here. People also tend to be more cosmopolitan, if you will. One thing that has never caught on, though, in Madagascar, that is one thing from the West, is shoes. Malagasy just don't like to wear shoes. It's not at all unusual to be in the capital and see a businessman in a three-piece business suit and tie, well dressed, walking down the street barefoot. Shoes have just never caught on there. This is a zebu. Zebus are ubiquitous in Madagascar. They're everywhere. Zebus are used for meat. They're almost the only meat in Madagascar. Anything else has to be imported and is very expensive. Zebu is plentiful and cheap. We ate a lot of zebu while we were in Madagascar. For most people in Madagascar, the zebu is the main source of transportation and means of hauling merchandise. Zebus plow the land, prepare it for farming each year. You're never too young to drive a zebu when spring planting time is approaching. My zebu is in the shop. Rice is the most essential food crop in the world. That is, rice keeps more people alive than any other plant on the planet. Madagascar is certainly no exception. Everyone grows rice. Everyone works in the rice paddies. Growing rice in Madagascar is not like growing it in Arkansas, Louisiana, East Texas for that matter. No tractors, no farm equipment, just people and zebus. And the work goes on day after day. Flooded rice fields, though, also yield more than growing rice. They also provide a source of small fish, frogs, and other food products. Nothing goes to waste. There's good food to be had out there. And then comes the harvest. Fishing is not as easy in the highlands as it is on the coast. Fish catch is not as plentiful, but it's still an important source of food. Here, a fisherman casts his net on a shallow freshwater lake. Don't forget to start the dishwasher. Of course, people work hard in Madagascar. Hard work is essential just for basic survival. One phenomenon you see around the world, though, especially in some cultures, is how people, especially women, can carry things on their heads. I've always been amazed by that. They can even do it while fishing. Amazing. Another way to travel for those who can't afford a luxury zebu. Life in the capital. This little girl is breaking tradition. She's wearing shoes. In the city, a brick hauler takes a break to nurse her baby. The open air market, known as the Zuma, where almost anything can be bought. Long day in the market. Sometimes you just have to take a nap. And of course, you just never have enough straw mats. Doing the laundry. Special on brooms today. Need bread? The Zuma has it all. Ah, the Zuma. One of the benefits of living in the big city. And it's been a good day at the Zuma. But now it's time to move on to something new. A totally unique custom, as far as I know. This is practiced no place else in the world. A Malagasy custom called Famadia. Malagasy, or at least the mariner, the Highland folk, are ancestor worshippers. They believe the ancestors control their destiny. So, once a year, in the winter months, for them, July and August, they get really concerned. The ancestors in their tombs are getting cold. We have to take them out and give them new dressing. So, they remove the bodies of their ancestors, have a huge party, and wrap them in new shrouds or linen, put them back in the tomb for another year. Now, of course, after this has been done a few times, I mean, there's no body left. It's just a collection of bones. I've attended a lot of these things, and I'm not, myself, I never was completely sure how they knew which bones went with which ancestors, but they do, I guess. Anyway, let's go to Farmadia. But before we can leave the Zuma, one last very important purchase.
Nandia lamina fiainanay taloha. Itony ihany rehefa ela ny ela.
Raikitra fa ho atao le izy zava-dehibe le tsodrano izy ty efa very ery amin'ny tany ery.
Okay, so what you've just seen was not my material. That's something I got from the internet. As I said, I have no audio from that time, and I wanted to present some sound. However, I'm talking about the sound I wanted to present from that clip is some of the Malagasy language. I wanted to present people speaking and what the language sounds like, and also how they feel about the Farmadillo, what they were saying. That music is unfortunate. That music is not Farmadillo music. That's something that they put into that video later. Uh, so don't get confused by that music. That's not real. But the the things that people were saying is what's important there. Okay, what we have here is some happy folks on the way out to Farmadilla. Farmadillos are a family affair. Each family holds one, but the entire village, countryside, and everybody around is invited. Um, I I was invited to many of them myself because I worked on a tracking station, as I said in the beginning, and we had a lot of employees there that from local people that worked there as well. And you became friends with some of them, and when their family would have a farmadilla, I would get invited, so I attended a lot of them. The It's an interesting custom about this ancestor worship. At the time, most Malagasy families spent more money on their tomb than they did on their house. So it's a big thing for them. As much as half their total yearly income would be spent on these farmadillas. So they're big events. Friends, relatives, and everyone from nearby gathers at the village of the family because it's farmadilla time. And still they come, all ready for a big day. The band has arrived, so the festivities can begin. So let the dancing begin. The music is good and loud. The dancing is free and uplifting. But it can't go on for too long here. The ancestors are waiting. Soon it's time to head for the tomb where the real festivities can begin. This is a big day. Some are already waiting at the tomb. Just couldn't wait for the crowd. This is a phenomenon that you see all over Africa and that part of the world. Here's the tomb. We've got all kinds of symbols on it. At the top, we have a Christian cross. We have other symbols of other religions on it, and obviously they're practicing ancestor worship. I mean, why take a chance? Cover all the bases. Okay, so let's get it open and get the folks out. Time for the real celebration to begin. We have a lot more dancing now that we have some bodies out. Everybody wants to make contact with the ancestor. big celebration, lots of noise, lots of joy. We brought the bodies out of the tomb in straw mats. And up until now, we have kept the bodies wrapped in the straw mats because they've been in the tomb in the shroud for a year. It's going to be rotten and weak, and the shroud may not hold together, but we don't want the bones falling apart. But now it's time to give them new shrouds. So we take them out of the straw mats. And now we have to give them something new to wear. Everybody likes colorful new clothing. Now everybody gets to have some alone time with the ancestors. So that's some of what I found in Madagascar all those years ago.